that is creating. The Department of Defense's main weapon systems for precision missiles, etc. The Department of Defense's main weapon systems for precision missiles, etc. Are dependent on 5 rare earth minerals, or 4 rare earth minerals and tungsten that come out of China. China controls the supply chain. So we're wanting to build more of these weapons, but the Chinese have said, whoa, wait a minute. We're not sending you any more of our rare earth minerals, because you're going to build weapons that you're going to use to attack us. We're not crazy. So this problem started back. It's been in place since, it probably predates. It goes back to George W. Bush, and then Barack Obama, and then Trump and and then Biden. So there's lots of blame to go around. Instead of anybody sitting down and saying, okay, how all these essential weapons, the Tomahawk, the JASSM, which is it's a cruise missile launched from an aircraft, the PAC-3 missiles, the air defense missiles for the Patriot system, the attack missiles that are fired out of the HIMARS, the PRISM missiles also fired from the HIMARS. All of those are dependent upon this Chinese supply chain. And even if the United States, appropriates another $1 trillion, you can't buy rare earth minerals. I have suggested, tongue-in-cheek, we need to update remember the old Beatles song? Well, you don't remember, you're not old enough, but I remember the old Beatles song, Can't Buy Me Love. Well, now we should say, Can't Buy Me Rare Earth Minerals.
I'm familiar with that song, Larry. But this is crazy, because I think that, looking at everything that's happening, what do you think the Trump administration thinks about this pact that was just signed between Saudi Arabia and Turkey and Pakistan?
I think they're scratching their head trying to figure out, is this something we can use, and they'll come along with us and use it as an excuse to attack Iran. But the thing that gives me pause in that is, if they had signed that in Riyadh, then I'd be inclined to believe, okay, there's some U.S. intelligence manipulation behind this, maybe British intelligence. But the fact that they signed it in Mecca, and, look, Erdogan's a snake, MBS is a snake, Sharif's a nice little man out of Pakistan, no real clout. But the fact that they chose that location, they were making a statement that these are Muslims coming together with a pledge to protect Muslims. That's how I see it right now. Now, I can be proven wrong, but I think we're making a mistake if we underestimate that. Because this was, they didn't just call each other up last week and say, hey, what are you doing next week? Can we get together? Let's sign a security pact. No, this thing had been carefully negotiated. Now, we haven't seen the language, so we don't know exactly what they agreed to. All we know is they came together at Mecca, they all signed it, and the declarations coming from it implied this is about protecting Muslims.
And if Israel is to attack Turkey, which they've already kind of alluded to more recently, that Turkey also needs to be liberated or whatever, if they were to attack Turkey, then this defense pact would come into effect.
Exactly. And not just comes into effect with a country that's got nuclear weapons. So another pause for Israel in its aggressive imperialist actions in the Middle East. That they attack Turkey, they're also attacking Pakistan. And in that case, I think both would respond. I mean, Israel would be insane to try to do something like that.
Yeah, that would be weird. I mean, my whole thing is that where does this leave Yemen? Because Saudi still does have that blockade. they still have that blockade on Yemen. For those who are not aware, like there's a huge humanitarian crisis in Yemen, and where does that leave them?
You know, those Yemenis, man, they are hard as woodpecker lips. They are tough. They have already. There's only 2 countries in the last 15 years that can claim they went toe to toe with the United States, and the United States had to back down. You know, first one is Yemen. You know, we had at one point we had 2 carrier strike groups in the Red Sea, trying to bomb the Houthis into submission, trying to destroy their ability to launch ballistic missiles. And after the United States lost close to $1.6 billion in MQ-9 Reapers, drones, and 3 F-18s that were probably, you know, totaled $190 million on that front, maybe more. The United States declared victory and left, just like what's being proposed now with respect to the Persian Gulf. Remember, after we said, oh, the Houthis capitulated, we're going home, and we did. And the Houthis didn't change a thing. So the Houthis have withstood a Saudi war for 10 years, backed completely by the West. They stopped that. They stopped the United States. And then you've got Iran, who now has stopped the United States. So this is, for the rest of the world, this is like this moment of revelation. Because everybody has assumed the United States was so big, so tough, so bad, you know, couldn't stand up against them. And now they're looking and saying, the Houthis did it, the Iranians did it, and you know, the Russians are doing it in Ukraine against the United States and all of NATO. So all of a sudden, the myth of the invincibility of Western military power has been exploded.
Yeah. It's kind of like I think Trump should be embarrassed. The U.S. government probably, and you imagine being a fly on that wall, but there's probably some other conversations that we have not been privy to where there is this sense of embarrassment. You embarrass the United States government on the world stage because it's just, yeah, you can claim victory, but we've all seen the videos. It is very clear, like we know that Iran is kicking like the U.S. butt, and Yemen joining in and all this stuff. Like we've seen the videos. It's very clear. People know like what's happening. And then if he does decide to take that advice and to walk with no agreement with the nuclear, then that's going to say something too.
Correct. Now look, the Iranians prior to this, they were willing to make a nuclear deal. They already had with JCPOA, and it was Trump that walked away from that. One of the concerns I have is people like Scott Bessent, the Secretary of Treasury. Now, if you listen to his comments, I think they were made either yesterday or today. I don't know if it was on one of the Sunday talk shows. But he basically said, well, we're going to build underground pipelines. That'll make the Strait of Hormuz no longer relevant. You know, I thought he was a smart guy. That is the damnedest, stupidest thing anybody could say. Okay, yeah, you got a place to pipe underground oil. What about the 25% supply of LNG that was coming out of Qatar? What about the 44% of the global supply of helium that was coming out of Qatar? What about the sulfur, the 35% of the world supply of sulfur and urea that was coming out of the Persian Gulf? You're going to put those in underground pipelines? No. And in fact, helium, you can't really do that with helium. It has to be stored in a special way. So that's why this is, you know, but Bessent is there, these Iranians are nothing, we got them under control. No, you don't. And if Trump's getting that kind of advice, it's not entirely Donald Trump's fault that he's being stupid. He's getting stupid advice.
First of all, even if that were the case, it takes time to build pipelines underground. And this is crazy.
Wait. That's your problem. You have too much common sense. Stop thinking rationally and logically. We're in the world of make believe here. Good Lord, yeah. No, you are so right. Good, God Almighty.
It takes me back to the Nord Stream pipeline, right? Like,
yeah,
again, like people are asking, well, who blew up the Nord Stream? We did. It was us.
All right, you can stop.
Yeah. And there's actually some of that pipeline still can be operated, but the Europeans said no, we don't want it anymore. Okay.
Yeah, this is a doozy. I think that right now, I know Iran's foreign minister said right now there's no agreement to be made, or no agreement that has been accepted, and
correct.
The U.S. has stopped striking Iran at this point in time.
Well, yeah, and I hope that continues. I've picked up some rumblings from buddies still inside that are connected to these operations, and there's some indications that the United States may be gearing up to make one more run at Iran to try to coerce them through military force. But we do know from previous press reports in the last week or so that, like General Dan Kane, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, who is Trump's by law top military advisor, has said, "Don't do it. We don't have enough weapons stocked. If we proceed down this road, if we use JASSMs, if we use Tomahawks, we don't really have any prisms left to use. That's out. ATACMS, they're exhausted. And anyway, ATACMS are irrelevant because they can't really reach across the Gulf. The only part of Iran they can hit is if you launch them from Kuwait into the northwest corner of Iran. So, he's saying if we exhaust our missile supply here, we got nothing left if we have to deal with China or Russia. And the commander of PACOM, Pacific Command, and the commander of EUCOM, Grinkovich, the other day, Brad Cooper, the guy in charge of CENTCOM, Central Command, that oversees the war against Iran, he called upon the European commander, say, okay, bring those destroyers from the 6th Fleet. We need them offshore of Israel to provide air protection because we're out of air defense missiles. And Grinkovich said, no, we're not doing that. We do that, you're gonna strip me, and I can't do my mission. So unless he's overridden by an order from the President of the United States, they're not doing it. And this is, I've witnessed these battles between what they call theater commanders-in-chief, theater sinks, the commander of EUCOM, commander of CENTCOM, commander of PACOM, and then you get commander of AFRICOM. When you start messing with what they consider to be their assets, they get a little grumpy. Say, no, that's not going to happen. So there's you got some chaos on that front.
This is really interesting, and it makes you wonder, like, what's going to happen. What's going to happen post midterms the rest of this year? Because there could be some changes, like in Congress, like congressional changes, and maybe they could reintroduce that War Powers Act again.
Well, you're seeing right now that within the Democrat Party, the number of people that have won the nomination and have ousted existing members of Congress who were very, if you will, pro-Israel. The ones coming in are not. They've taken a decidedly different tack. And then within the Republican Party, you've got tremendous division. I'm offering up, a parallel to 1854. So in 1854, the dominant party, you had the Democrats under Andrew Jackson's party, and you had the Whigs. Now, the Whigs split over the issue of slavery because they came in with this Kansas-Nebraska Act, I think it was, talking about, oh, we're going to leave it up to each state to decide whether they want to be able to own slaves. And there were principal members of the Whig Party that said, oh, hell no, we're not agreeing to that. And they split off. And with them, they also carried some Democrats who were also anti-slave. And that formed the new Republican Party. So that Whig Party it disappeared from history. Nobody remembers it. Two of our presidents were considered Whigs. And if you put a gun to most people's head to name them, they couldn't. I think one was like Franklin Pierce. But I think we're in a similar situation now within the Republican Party / MAGA movement. There has been a complete division over the issue of Zionism. Are we going to support Israel first or not? I did an interview 2 days ago with Mark McCluskey.
Them.
You know, those Yemenis, man, they are hard as woodpecker lips. They are tough. They have already, there's only 2 countries angry complaints. And the Secretary of the Navy was getting
pretty hot. So last year or so, there was that clear demand. Free Palestine, stop killing children.
All right, ladies and gents, that was Larry Johnson. Again, always a great time. A lot of things like
Millions of dollars in lies are flooding Maine from out-of-state groups attacking Susan Collins. Independent fact-checkers called this attack on Susan's Medicaid record false. Susan's been named a Medicaid champion, and calling Susan corrupt also proven false. Mainers know and trust Susan. She's America's most bipartisan senator, and the only way to beat their lies is for us to tell the truth.
I'm Susan Collins, and I've approved this message. Join my team and give today.
Based on your behavior throughout the traffic stop, I know you knew about it, okay? Ma'am, this isn't my first day, okay? I told you in the car. This is what I do for a living, okay? Okay.
Well, it's just drive.
In the ICU, I've seen patients being bankrupted by the cost of care. Susan Collins voted to support Donald Trump on the largest Medicaid cut in history. We need to tell Susan Collins to stop siding with Donald Trump.
Facebook, their last post was in January.
And on top of all of this, DHHS says both agencies failed to give out medication to clients. I did ask DHHS how much beyond residential care and Paradise Residential Services billed Maine Care within the last year. I was told we would need to file a FOIA request. Our team is working on that as we speak. But for now, we're live in studio tonight. Max Lee, CBS 13 News. Greg.
All right, some important digging and context, Max. Thanks. Senator Susan Collins has introduced a bill now that she says is designed to prevent widespread fraud before federal payments are made. Senator Collins says that bill gives the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services stronger screening tools, increases inspections for high-risk providers, and provides more money to prosecute organized fraud schemes. Some industry care leaders have also endorsed this bill. They say it will protect honest providers and vulnerable seniors.
Now, have you step back here with me? We're going to go over the warning and I'll be showing you away, okay? Is there any weapons on you or in the vehicle? No. Okay. Alright, I'm going to get in the front passenger seat, okay? Yeah.
This car stop could have gone so badly because the officer conducts a stop for expired tags and doesn't realize that this is going to be a situation where his life flashes before his eyes.
Hi there. Yeah, I'm also Kennedy Military Police earlier in our conversation being recorded a bit.
Yes, it is.
The reason for the stop today is that unregistered tags are expired. Do you have your license on now? Is that a firearm under your jacket? Don't reach for it, just answer it.
That's a no right there. At this point where a person is reaching for a firearm, I'm clearing leather, meaning my firearm is like out of the holster if the person is reaching for the firearm. I mean, you gotta be super, super careful in this type of situation, especially with her attitude in the beginning.
I don't know. I'm asking if it's a firearm, so if you reach for it, we have issues.
Yes.
Okay, don't ever reach for it. Okay. Will you do me a favor? I'd like to remove that from you.
I would rather remove it myself.
Okay, you're not gonna do that. You're not gonna put a firearm in. Okay, so just hear me out. Stop talking. Just let me explain, okay? This is my safety. I don't mean any hurt to you.
Excuse me, but it's about my safety.
Okay, I'm not going to hurt you, nor am I putting up an intimidating
Well, I'm not
Just
going to
listen.
hurt you.
This is what I would like to do, okay? All I would like you to do is cross your fingers like this, put your hand on your head, and I'd like to just grab it, take it out. I'm not going to seize it
No,
or
I do
anything.
not want my weapon outside of my vehicle.
Where's your ID?
I do not want my weapon outside of the vehicle.
Where is your
I
ID?
am willing to put my weapon on the dash so that you can clearly
Do not
see it.
touch that guy.
What?
Okay.
Then it'll
I'll tell
see
you
where
what.
it's at.
Put the paperwork on the dash for me. Put the paperwork on the dash.
Why?
Because I'm telling you to.
There are yes people, no people, and maybe people. That's how we look at people in policing. This lady is a no to a maybe person at best so far. This firearm is still on her. This could go in any direction.
That's a lawful order. Put the paperwork on the dash now and put your hands on the steering wheel and don't move it. Okay? You're being confrontational. You have a firearm. We're not going to play that game. I'm going to get your name, date of birth, and I'm going to continue my traffic stop. Do you understand that? That's fine. I recommend that. Well, if you're not going to plead the fifth, you're going to need to present me with an ID. Can you point to where your ID is?
No, sir. You told me to put my
I
hands
did,
on the
but
steering
you told me
wheel.
you were going to plead the fifth, which means you're not going to talk anymore. If you're not going to talk, you can't tell me your name and your date of birth. So will you tell me your name and date of birth?
Not until I present this paperwork.
Okay. 3216. Can I get another unit? I'm going to get my chief down here for you. Keep your hands right where they're at.
I will keep them there as long as I can.
They need to remain there, and your hand needs to stay away from them.
And I already told you, I will keep them there as long as I can. This is not exactly a comfortable position.
Female's verbally uncooperative.
I am not uncooperative. I am simply answering you without mine.
Susan Collins secured critical K-12 education funding for Maine students. This year, she brought Maine more than $70 million to support students with disabilities.
Where you guys headed to? Oh, okay, nice. What's going on out there? Oh, okay. How long are you going to be out there for? Oh, okay. Is it her family that's out there, or? Are you staying in a hotel when you're out there, or?
We don't know yet.
Oh.
I don't think so.
Okay, I got you. So when you say family, are you talking like brothers and sisters, or what kind of family you got out there?
Aunts and uncles.
Oh, okay.
Come on.
What time do you guys take off?
Like at 3 in the morning.
Oh, dang.
Yeah, we're in Phoenix, so we want to
okay.
rest.
I got you.
I just had it up, too.
Well, if it takes a second, it takes a second, no worries. What do you do for work?
I work for a steel distributor.
Sorry?
Steel distributor?
Oh, okay, nice.
Yeah, I do order the specs for construction.
It's nice.
It's called Time Tools.
Oh, okay, cool. How long you been doing that?
Like 5 years.
Okay, nice. And it's your car?
It's both of them.
Oh, okay.
It's my car, yeah.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Gotcha. No, you're good, dude.
I try to get around the loan, but you don't have credit, so.
Police say 23-year-old Dylan Maliska was already in jail for drug and parole violations, but officials say they listened to phone calls earlier this month that Maliska made to his grandmother.
6-year-old Angelica Olivo faces 6 charges that include being a drug enterprise leader. She was arrested earlier this week in Laconia after a local and state police investigation.
5 years. 5 very long, sad years.
Pam Willis wears a picture of her grandson, 22-year-old Thomas Drake, who died of an overdose in September 2014. His best friend, Nicholas Austin, pleaded guilty to supplying the drug 2 years later. But now, finally in court, 44-year-old Felix Aguilar, the suspected dealer who fled to the Dominican Republic 4 years ago.
Monica, Marissa, the amount of that was with that dealer could have killed 250,000 people. That number is just so significant. And this operation by the Attorney General's office, this investigation, was really massive.
28-year-old Shania Tripp and 42-year-old Krista Robinson, both of St. Albans, were inside the car. Deputies say Tripp was on probation and was subject to random
Today,
seizures.
the Trinitarios' reign of terror in Massachusetts has come to an end.
Nearly 24 alleged members of what prosecutors called a violent transnational criminal street gang.
Starting at 5 a.m., members of the Manchester Police Special Enforcement Division and SWAT team stormed into this home on Maplehurst Avenue. Police say the raid stems from an investigation into the distribution of illegal drugs and illegal possession of firearms.
Police in Somersworth say a hit-and-run crash led to a large seizure.
Arresting 2 men from Massachusetts, 28-year-old Ricardo Antonio Lara Guerrero and 24-year-old Jason Checo Severino, who investigators say were illegally trafficking the drugs into New Hampshire.
Tonight, police in New Hampshire investigating the death of a woman. Police tell us they responded to Sunapee Street on Tuesday for an unconscious woman in Newport. And when they got there, they found 33-year-old Mary Ann Baldoff had passed away. Her body has been taken to the chief medical examiner's office to determine the cause of death. The police investigation led them to get a search warrant of a home on Prospect Street in Claremont.
Anywhere in the state to target those individuals that are pushing poison in our communities.
The DEA and Franklin Police Department worked together to arrest 27 people this week, all with alleged ties to drug trafficking in the city.
New Hampshire man is facing charges after police in Maine say nearly 4 pounds of meth was found in his car. Hudson police say 2 people face charges in connection to an ongoing drug investigation. Jacob Mitchell and Alyssa Gutierrez were arrested yesterday.
Is yes or no question?
I don't know. You have to ask my husband first. That's his part, you know. And
okay, well I'm gonna talk.
Hey, we need to talk.
When you're driving, we're watching. We see you glance at your phone or touch up your makeup. You always say.
Pay attention.
So why don't you? We appreciate you driving us everywhere.
I'm asking you first.
The Granite State. White mountains, covered bridges, lakes full of tourists every summer, and white.
Alleged ties to drug trafficking in the city.
New Hampshire man is facing charges after police in Maine say nearly 4 pounds of meth was found in his car. Hudson police after police in Maine say
ties to drug trafficking in the city.
New Hampshire man is facing charges after police in Maine say nearly 4 pounds of meth was found in his car. Hudson police say 2 people face charges in connection to an ongoing drug investigation. Jacob Mitchell and Alyssa Gutierrez were arrested yesterday.
New Hampshire, the Granite State, white mountains, covered bridges, lakes full of tourists every summer, and 4 words stamped on every license plate: live free or die. It ranks among the safest states in America. Low crime, high income, small towns where people still know their neighbors. It has also been one of the hardest hit states in the country by the opioid epidemic. The reason is geography. New Hampshire sits at the end of a pipeline. Fentanyl and meth move north out of Lawrence and Lowell. Massachusetts, 2 cities federal investigators name over and over as New England's distribution hubs, running up Interstate 93 and Interstate 95 into Manchester, Nashua, Concord, Salem, and out into the small towns beyond. The drugs don't start here. They arrive here. And according to the DEA's own public statements, the supply chain behind them traces back to the Sinaloa cartel in Mexico. Tonight we're walking through New Hampshire's drug busts, case by case, and watching the problem evolve in real time. It starts with an all-day sweep in Portsmouth in 2009. It moves through the bath salts panic of 2012, the largest H seizure in Manchester's history in 2013, and into the Fenty era that changed everything. Then it gets stranger and darker. A woman allegedly running a narcotics and firearms enterprise from inside a prison cell. A co-conspirator accused of operating a gun factory, with 94 firearms recovered. 12 defendants convicted for running a drug operation over encrypted apps and text messages, like ordering takeout. 17 people arrested in the rural North Country, described by the state's own top law enforcement officer as responsible for the majority of fentanyl and meth in the entire county. A day when 88 agencies made 151 arrests across the state at once, and a dealer extradited from the Dominican Republic to answer for a death in a small New Hampshire town. Everything here comes from court records, federal press releases, and law enforcement statements. These are allegations unless a conviction is noted, and everyone is presumed innocent until proven guilty. This is New Hampshire's drug war. Let's get into it.
6-year-old Angelica Olivo faces 6 charges that include being a drug enterprise leader. She was arrested earlier this week in Laconia after a local and state police investigation. Police say during the course of the investigation, they seized a handgun, $16,000, and large amounts of fentanyl. Court records say that during questioning, Olivo told police that she was one of the larger drug dealers in Laconia and hasn't had a job in 2 years. Alan Hawley was in his apartment when police came.
I was in my house with a friend, and the lights went out, and we looked out the window, and there was all kinds of cops in the driveway, and they were out back searching one of the apartments.
Authorities say they were lucky to be able to get Olivo off the streets.
In April 2019, police said they hoped they'd made a major dent in the Lakes Region drug trade after a raid resulted in the arrest of a woman they identified as a significant dealer. The Lakes Region, Laconia, Meriden, the towns around Winnipesaukee is postcard New Hampshire, and it has not been spared.
And this operation by the Attorney General's office, this investigation, was really massive. Back in September, 46-year-old John Santiago was found guilty by a jury of possessing and conspiring to sell half a kilo of fentanyl. Investigators say he'd been bringing drugs from the Merrimack Valley into New Hampshire. He's now been sentenced to 20 years to life in state prison on both charges, and this all started with a wiretapping investigation. The AG's office had been looking into a drug dealer running a big operation out of Haverhill, Massachusetts, and Santiago was working with him. The AG's office says they want this severe sentence to send a message to anyone in the drug trafficking community that this won't be tolerated.
The harshest sentence in this entire video. John Santiago, 46, was found guilty in September 2023 of possessing and conspiring to sell half a kilogram of fentanyl. That November, he was sentenced to 20 years to life in prison on both charges. Half a kilogram, 500 grams. Using the same lethal dose math from earlier, that quantity represents potential deaths in the hundreds of thousands. which is precisely why the sentencing exposure climbs into life territory.
Police say 23-year-old Dylan Maliska was already in jail for drug and parole violations, but officials say they listened to phone calls earlier this month that Maliska made to his grandmother, in which he told her from his home and then sell it to at least one person. 60-year-old Regina Minor now faces several drug charges after police say they found drugs in her home. She is free on bail.
Dylan Maliska was 23 years old and already behind bars, locked up on drug and parole violations. But according to Keene police, being in custody didn't stop his operation. It just changed who was running it. Maliska allegedly turned to the one person he could count on, his grandmother. Regina Minor was 60 years old. Investigators say her grandson directed her to go to his home on Woodburn Street and retrieve eggs and penny he had stashed there, and then get it moving. What Maliska apparently didn't account for is that in jail, the phone is never really private. Detectives monitored his calls to Minor, and those recordings, police said, revealed that she had gone and gotten the drugs, and had distributed them to at least one other person. With the calls in hand, detectives obtained a search warrant for the Woodburn Street home and seized an estimated 20 grams of H and Fenty. Regina Minor was arrested and charged with possession of a controlled drug and conspiracy to distribute a controlled drug. She was released on $5,000 bail. Her grandson was charged with possession of a controlled drug with intent to distribute and criminal solicitation. The charge for directing someone else to commit the crime for you. A 60-year-old grandmother, a jail phone, and 20 grams of Fenty. That's what the opioid trade looks like when it reaches into a family.
Troy Jackson was accused of mortgage fraud for falsifying documents. Jackson billed taxpayers for massive travel expenses, and Jackson was known for bullying women. Troy Jackson falsifying documents, ripping off taxpayers, and a bully we can't trust.
I love you.
Don't say it. Feed him. Here, eat more. I can feel myself changing. I've become my auntie.
Nearly 24 alleged members of what prosecutors call a violent transnational criminal street gang,
14 of which are charged in connection with 6 homicides,
now facing federal racketeering conspiracy charges from drug trafficking to deadly shootings. Authorities say the Trinitarios gang had chapters and members operating in Massachusetts, Maine, and in Manchester. And the group's leader, or state supreme, Emmanuel Paula Cabral, who allegedly worked with Trinitarios in the Dominican Republic too. Investigators allege the gang was behind 2 doubles in Lynn in 2023 and others in Lawrence in 2017.
In February 2025, dozens of members of a gang with ties to New Hampshire were charged with deletion and drug trafficking, a reminder that the trade running through this state isn't just loose networks of local dealers, but organized enterprises with the violence that comes attached.
Pam Willis wears a picture of her grandson, 22-year-old Thomas Drake, who died of a fentanyl overdose in September 2014. His best friend, Nicholas Austin, pleaded guilty to supplying the drug 2 years later. But now, finally in court, 44-year-old Felix Aguilar, the suspected dealer who fled to the Dominican Republic 4 years ago, the Dominican president signing an extradition order this week. Aguilar, who goes by several aliases, has a long criminal drug history. He was actually deported in 2010 after serving time in another state, but came back. In 2015, with this indictment pending, he was arrested in the Bay State on drug charges. They thought they had him.
And we close with a case that shows how far these investigations can reach. In July 2019, a suspected Betty dealer was returned to New Hampshire from the Dominican Republic to face charges connected to the death of a man from Atkinson. Think about the machinery that requires. A local overdose death in a small New Hampshire town. An investigation that identifies the supplier. A suspect who has already left the country. And then an international extradition coordinated between federal authorities and a foreign government to bring him back to answer for it. That same spring, a traffic stop along Interstate 40 brought in a significant haul of its own, the Interstate's Give It. and the interstates taketh away.
28-year-old Shania Tripp and 42-year-old Krista Robinson, both of St. Albans, were inside the car. Deputies say Tripp was on probation and was subject to random searches. Robinson was also searched, and officials say they found more drugs in the vehicle and on the ground, which deputies believe were discarded by Robinson. Authorities say Robinson is being charged with drug trafficking, falsifying physical evidence, and unlawful drug possession. They say Tripp was also charged with drug trafficking.
In April 2026, 2 women were arrested in Canaan, New Hampshire, and charged with drug trafficking. Canaan is a town of roughly 4,000 people in the Upper Valley, a long way from Manchester, and proof that the pipeline reaches all the way into rural New Hampshire.
It's called Operation Granite Shield, a months-long anti-drug operation that culminated Thursday as 88 different law enforcement agencies made arrests and seized drugs, cash, and weapons during a 20-hour sweep.
Yesterday was a significant day, a huge step towards disrupting would-be drug dealers and drug organizations in the state of New Hampshire.
The operation was funded by a $1.2 million state grant, which paid for everything from gathering information and surveillance to undercover buys. The numbers look like this: 151 total arrests, the seizure of 24 weapons, and $37,000 in cash, along with about 18,000 doses of heroin and fentanyl, with a street value of more than $22,000.
Let's make it clear that, we have a major fentanyl crisis in the state of New Hampshire. That's not news to anybody. So that's obviously always the top priority. Everything we do is centered around that.
Authorities say they also seized a BMW with a secret hydraulic compartment for hiding drugs and money. All evidence officials say that this is an ongoing war with more battles left to be fought.
This is the biggest single day in New Hampshire drug enforcement history and one of the most comprehensive drug operations ever undertaken in New England. On February 15, 2018, 88 local, state, and federal law enforcement agencies executed a coordinated statewide sweep. In one day, they arrested 151 people. They seized more than 551 grams of heroin and fentanyl, roughly 18,000 doses, worth over $22,000, along with 24 weapons, over $37,000 in cash, and a quantity of oxycodone pills. The operation hit nearly every major population center in the state at once: Berlin, Concord, Franklin, Keene, Laconia, Lebanon, Manchester, Nashua, Portsmouth, Salem, Pelham, and more. In Manchester alone, 13 people were arrested in a raid that ran the entire day, the state's largest city, taking its share of the largest sweep the state had ever run. And the state police were emphatic about what kind of arrests these were. As the commander of the Investigative Services Bureau put it, they weren't out there just arresting people for possession. They were addressing the source of the people bringing H, fentanyl, and other narcotics into the state. Drug dealers accounted for at least half the arrests, and all but about 20 of the 151 resulted in drug-related charges. Granite Shield was a state-funded program, backed by $4.5 million in legislative funding approved in 2017. The state police colonel said New Hampshire was safer that day because of a months-long cooperative effort between state, local, and federal partners. Manchester, for its part, had already been running its own version for years. Operation Granite Hammer launched in the fall of 2015 short, intensive, roughly 8-hour operations targeting street-level dealers, run over and over again in partnership with state police narcotics investigators and the DEA. By early 2017, the department counted more than 120 arrests across those sweeps alone. And here's the detail that captures the regional reality. On that very same day, Maine, Massachusetts, and Vermont carried out similar operations of their own. Because as the governor said at the press conference, New Hampshire law enforcement cannot let state borders restrict their efforts. The dealers certainly don't.
Those men were arrested after a months-long investigation, and police say they had enough to kill thousands of people.
Thousands and thousands of doses, just in that.
Thousands of grams of dead leaf now off the streets.
Every time that a user takes a single dose, it's rolling the dice as to whether there will be a fatal overdose.
Police tracking down those drugs after a months-long investigation through the state's drug trafficking enforcement effort, Operation Granite Shield.
The whole purpose of the Granite Shield operations is to work our way up the food chain, so to speak.
Arresting two men from Massachusetts, 28-year-old Ricardo Antonio Lara Guerrero and 24-year-old Jason Checo Severino, who investigators say were illegally trafficking the drugs into New Hampshire.
It starts.
In February 2025, two Massachusetts men were arrested after investigators said they brought a massive drug operation across state lines. This is the pipeline in a single case. The operation originates in Massachusetts. The product moves north, and New Hampshire is the destination market.
The U.S. Attorney's Office in Boston says that 5 people are now charged, and 3 of them are from New Hampshire. Those include Mackenzie Benson from Berlin, Michael Miller from Littleton, and Ernest LaPlante Jr., also from Littleton. Benson is already serving time in New Hampshire after he was convicted in 2024 on drug charges, but investigators allege he was the leader of this organization. Investigators add Benson and Miller were allegedly the primary dealers for this group.
This is the story of Mackenzie Benson, already serving time on a 2020 drug conviction. She was running a full-scale firearms and narcotics operation across New England while locked up. She coordinated from prison. Her co-conspirators, Michael Miller in Littleton, Ernest LaPlante Jr. in Littleton, moved product on the street. June 2026. 3 New Hampshire residents charged in federal court. The scope: fentanyl trafficking, coke distribution, Mary. But the twisted part, they weren't just selling drugs. They were manufacturing and distributing firearms. Ernest LaPlante Jr. was running a gun factory. 94 firearms recovered in federal searches. This is organized crime, not meth lab operation, not corner boy hustling. This is a multi-state enterprise moving tons of narcotics and manufacturing weapons. Federal charges, federal prosecution, federal sentencing coming.
Starting at 5 a.m., members of the Manchester Police Special Enforcement Division and SWAT team stormed into this home on Maplehurst Avenue. Police say the raid stems from an investigation into the distribution of illegal drugs and illegal possession of firearms. Inside the home, police made contact with multiple people. Not all of them lived there. Police leaving with some kind of long gun and a dog being taken out in a restraint. A chunk of the front door missing. 2 people with bench warrants were arrested. One of them, 29-year-old Robert Lyles, who's a convicted felon. He is now facing additional felon in possession of a dangerous weapon charges. Neighbors tell us this is not the first time police have raided the house. They say it's usually a quiet neighborhood in a school zone, but things have gotten worse over the last 6 months with people walking or biking to the house at all hours. News 9 Investigates has learned that the city took ownership of the home in September because of back taxes. The homeowners still have time to pay those taxes off to be in good standing with the city, which is why they're allowed to remain in the home.
Think of the main landscape. That's the leadership Susan Collins brings to Washington. While others chase headlines and partisan noise, Susan moves forward with purpose. Her eyes fixed on Maine's future. Susan Collins, strong and reliable. This is 22,353 testing spoons. The amount it took to perfect Graz's new mayonnaise.
In December 2024, Manchester police raided a home on Maplehurst Avenue as part of an investigation into illegal drugs and firearms. But the detail that made this story was uncovered afterward by investigative reporters. The property was technically owned by the city of Manchester itself.
Happened in Newport on 2 residential streets right off of North Main Street. Newport police say the long-term drug investigation started from neighborhood tips and complaints. Of the people arrested, these 4 included 3 from New Hampshire and 1 from Vermont. The other 4 all from Newport. Police were able to make the arrest after obtaining a search warrant following months of surveillance.
Sometimes the biggest busts start small. Newport police got tips from the neighborhood. Residents sick of dealers on their streets. August 2025. The investigation went for months. Surveillance, intelligence, then the warrant. 8 people arrested. David Party from Vermont, Jamie Long from Bradford, Cassandra Matthews, Aaron Hess, Sean Willie, Daniel Chick, Casey Fernal, Shannon Martin, 30 grams of fentanyl, 28 grams of drugs. Charges ranging from possession with intent to sell to maintaining a common nuisance, which means turning your home into a drug house. Probation violations came in hot for the repeat offenders. What makes this relevant? It shows how local intelligence networks can dismantle significant trafficking operations. Newport didn't wait for the DEA. They got tips, worked the case methodically, and took down 8 active dealers in one operation.
With the drugs and cash laid out before him, Police Chief David Mara said police have made the largest siege in Manchester's history. The chief says these drugs are the cause of much of the misery in the city.
This is what fuels our crime problem in Manchester. This is what fuels our burglaries. This is what fuels our robberies. So this is a great opportunity for us. We were able to take a lot of drugs off the street.
In a raid at 325 Silver Street, police found 100 grams of heroin valued at $10,000 and more than $4,000 in cash. The residence was that of Monique Teal, who faces felony drug charges. Also arrested was John La Rochelle of Manchester. The chief says the heroin problem is a byproduct of another drug problem.
August 2013. This one made history. Manchester police announced the largest drug seizure in the city's history, and one of the largest in New Hampshire's recorded history. 4 people arrested. H. Large quantities. The announcement came with official credibility. The Manchester Police Department doesn't hype cases. When they said this was the biggest, they meant it. Over a decade later, this bust still gets referenced in law enforcement briefings as the high watermark for single operation heroin seizures in the state.
Tonight, police in New Hampshire investigating the death of a woman. Police tell us they responded to Sunapee Street on Tuesday for an unconscious woman in Newport. And when they got there, they found 33-year-old Mary Ann Baldoff had passed away. Her body has been taken to the chief medical examiner's office to determine the cause of death. The police investigation led them to get a search warrant of a home on Prospect Street in Claremont, as well as for 2 people. Police found illegal drugs inside the home. Police said Janiti of Claremont was arrested, and police are still searching for this woman.
January 2024, a woman was arrested for drug trafficking following a death in Newport, New Hampshire. This is one of the most consequential shifts in how these cases get prosecuted. When an overdose death can be traced back to a specific supplier, prosecutors can pursue charges tied directly to that death, turning what would have been a distribution case into something far heavier.
Now, the drugs are those bath salts that we've been talking about recently, and they were just found in big quantities in the small community of Plastown, New Hampshire, a town of 9,000 people. Police seized more than $100,000 of the drug from a convenience store, this one, over the weekend. Since last October, America has seen a concerning trend of bath salt use. It's prompted the DEA to ban 3 of the chemicals found in the lethal drug. But bath salts are suspected in the horrifying assault in Miami, the man who ate off another man's face, that horrible picture, and in other, some of them cannibalistic attacks around the country. Detective George Wixon is an undercover agent who made the bust in Plastow.
June 2012. CNN's Aaron Burnett sat down with an undercover DEA agent who had just busted a major bath salts distribution operation in New Hampshire. The agent held evidence bags containing the crystalline powder that was destroying communities. Synthetic cathinones, bath salts, a drug that caused hallucinations, paranoia, violent behavior. New Hampshire got hit hard. The bust was significant enough that CNN sent national reporters to cover it. Years later, New Hampshire would add alpha PHP to its controlled substance list because the problem never went away.
The DEA and Franklin Police Department worked together to arrest 27 people this week, all with alleged ties to drug trafficking in the city.
That is a gigantic number by all accounts. It is one of the largest that I've seen in my 3 years here at DEA.
The DEA says 3 search warrants were executed. About $100,000 in cash was seized. Agents say this operation has ties to a notorious international crime group.
That organization is the Sinaloa cartel.
People in Franklin say they feel safer after this bust.
It's a big breath of relief for everybody in Franklin. I mean, 27 people in total is huge.
Officials say they will keep working to make sure that people in every...
It's always 5 o'clock somewhere.